Usually when we think about the human body, we treat it with this almost quiet reverence, like it's a temple, right?
Right, absolutely. A temple.
You feed it dark leafy greens. You make sure you get your 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
You drink your water.
Exactly.
And most importantly, you listen closely when it says it's tired. Like, you just stop.
Yeah, because the overarching goal for, well, almost all of us is preservation. I mean, it is about maintaining homeostasis. You're finding that balance and just ensuring the machine keeps running smoothly for as many decades as possible.
Right. But what happens when you completely flip that script?
Oh, man.
Like, what happens when you treat the human body not as a delicate temple, but as an engine? And I mean, not just any engine, but one that you are deliberately pushing to its absolute literal breaking point.
Yeah, just to see how much horsepower it can generate before the gears shatter.
Exactly.
When you do that, you enter this reality where the normal rules of biology and, frankly, the normal rules of self-preservation are entirely suspended. You stop listening to the body and you just start commanding it.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a genuinely revealing, honestly, incredibly raw interview transcript with an elite rhythmic gymnast turned artist. Her name is Qilin.
It's such a fascinating journey.
It really is. We are going to track her journey from, a secret entry into elite sports all the way through the hidden, brutal mechanics of extreme physical conditioning.
And the inevitable battle with total bodily and systemic breakdown.
Right. And finally, we'll explore her rebirth, I guess you could call it, in the worlds of street dance and fine arts.
So the mission for our deep dive today is really to help you understand the profound difference between athletic function, which is strictly what the body can do, and artistic expression.
Which is what the body wants to say.
Exactly. By breaking down Qilin's experiences, we are going to decode how elite athletes experience their physical forms in a way that is just entirely alien to the rest of us.
Totally. So let's start right at the beginning. Qilin didn't have the typical stage parents pushing her into elite athletics from the cradle.
No, not at all.
She actually started in Chinese folk dance at age 4.
Yeah.
But around age 10, she made this massive secret pivot to rhythmic gymnastics.
Which is so late for gymnastics, by the way.
Right. And she had to keep it a secret because her parents were fundamentally opposed to competitive sports. I mean, they just wanted her focused on academics.
Yeah, and to understand the sheer willpower involved here, you really have to look at what happened a few years later. She was studying abroad in Canada as a young teenager.
Okay.
And she was still keeping this massive athletic ambition completely hidden. So imagine a middle school student, right? Setting an alarm for 3 p.m.
Oh, my gosh.
Waking up in the freezing dark and going down to a basement to quietly execute elite-level athletic routines for hours.
In a basement at 3 a.m.
Yeah. She did this just so she could get her physical training in and still keep up her academic studies during the day.
That is insane.
And she actually managed to make it all the way to the professional national training level before her parents fully grasped the reality of what she was doing. They only figured it out when they saw the official title of a high-level competition she was entering.
I picture that teenager in the dead of night, quietly practicing these explosive leaps while trying not to wake anyone upstairs. It requires a singular obsession.
It really does.
But what really stands out in her story is how this early, intense immersion completely rewired her brain's understanding of human movement. Like, there is a massive fundamental difference in how a trained dancer and a gymnast view the exact same movement.
Oh, absolutely.
Take something as simple as a spin. Okay, let's unpack this, because if you ask a classically trained dancer to execute a spin, what are they thinking about?
Well, their primary focus is on the aesthetic history and the form of that movement, right?
Yeah.
They are highly conscious of the stylistic container.
Right, exactly.
They're worrying if their hands look like proper, delicate ballet hands, or if their feet are articulating the floor with the correct jazz feet.
Yeah, the visual aesthetic is the primary goal, and the physical movement is just the vehicle to deliver that aesthetic.
Exactly.
But to a gymnast, none of that stylistic, historical stuff matters. To the gymnast, a spin is a problem of pure physics.
Yes.
Qilin notes that the arm placement in a spin only matters if it physically complements the rotation. I mean, it's like looking at a sports car. The dancer is evaluating the sleek, aerodynamic design of the exterior, making sure the lines are beautiful and the paint gleams.
Right.
But the gymnast is just staring at the engine, They're calculating the horsepower, the torque, the center of mass, and the sheer mechanical friction needed to make that machine move through space as efficiently as possible.
What's fascinating here is that adopting this pure physics-based mindset is essentially a superpower for learning.
Really? How so?
Well, it allows athletes to deconstruct and master complex movements incredibly fast. If you stop viewing your body as an emotional vessel and start viewing it as a system of levers, pulleys, and fulcrums governed by gravity and momentum,
You strip away all the emotional baggage.
precisely, you don't worry about how you feel, you just optimize the mechanical output. But, and this is a big but, this purely mechanical view comes with a severe psychological side effect.
Which is?
It strips away the emotional connection to your own physical form. You stop inhabiting your body and start operating it from a distance, like a pilot in a cockpit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And if you view the body purely as a mechanical engine, you naturally want more horsepower.
Always.
Which means we have to look at how these athletes actually tune that engine. And that leads us directly into the brutal, largely hidden reality of elite body conditioning.
It's hard to even listen to, honestly.
It is. We are talking about grueling 4-hour training sessions and the stretching involved. I mean, if you are picturing a relaxing Sunday morning yoga class, erase that from your mind immediately.
Yeah, completely different universe.
We're talking about an athlete taking one leg, elevating it onto a chair, and holding it there for 5 uninterrupted minutes, just to force the ligaments and tendons into extreme flexibility.
Try to physically conceptualize that for a moment. Most people, they struggle to touch their toes for 30 seconds.
I know I do.
Right. But in elite rhythmic gymnastics, there is a benchmark known as the flexibility threshold. To pass this threshold, an athlete must be able to drop into a full 180-degree split completely effortlessly.
Just drop into it.
Yes. But the key detail here is that they must do it without a single flinch of pain.
Wait, zero pain.
Zero. The standard isn't just to force the body into the position. The standard is to normalize that extreme position until the nervous system stops sending pain signals entirely.
That is terrifying.
It is. And in many cases, a flat 180 degrees isn't even enough. Coaches frequently demand going beyond that into oversplits.
Oversplits.
Yeah, elevating the front or back leg on blocks so the angle is actually greater than 180 degrees, because a perfectly flat line is considered, quote-unquote, unattractive or insufficient in their specific judging rubrics.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the conditioning goes far beyond just stretching muscles. It fundamentally alters how the joints themselves operate.
Yeah.
Qilin describes a terrifying technical requirement called knee awareness. She explains that in her routines, the absolute microsecond her foot leaves the ground, the muscles surrounding the knee must snap the joint completely straight.
Like a lock.
Yeah, it's not a graceful extension. She literally describes an audible popping sound echoing in the training hall as the heel strikes the floor, just from the sheer violent force of the joint locking out.
It's hard to even picture.
So I have to push back here. I mean, is this even biologically healthy? Or are we essentially watching young athletes force their bodies to mutate just to meet arbitrary numbers on a scoring rubric?
To answer your question directly, it is the absolute opposite of healthy.
Okay, good to know.
But that highlights the core misunderstanding the general public has about elite sports. We conflate being fit with being healthy.
Oh, that's a great point.
Elite sports are not about health, and they certainly are not about longevity. They are strictly about maximum power output, flawless execution of highly specific criteria, and testing the absolute extreme limits of human physiology.
Right.
When a body is repeatedly forced to adapt to unnatural extremes, like violently snapping the knee joint rigidly straight in midair hundreds of times a day, it will adapt. The human body is remarkably compliant.
It'll do what you tell it to do.
Exactly. But it adapts at a tremendous compounding physical cost that usually comes due later in life.
Which brings us to the inevitable breaking point. Because pushing the engine to its absolute physical limits means the engine is going to sustain damage.
Always.
But what Quilin's journey reveals is that it's not just the physical body that breaks down. The athlete also has to navigate the breakdown of the very institutions and bureaucracies that are, theoretically at least, built to protect them and foster their talent.
Yeah, her experience provides a very stark look at the bureaucratic realities athletes face globally. She navigated two very different worlds, actually.
Right, she saw both sides.
She experienced the North American club system, which is largely self-funded by the parents and has to be meticulously structured around a young athlete's academic schooling.
Okay.
And then she experienced the Chinese state-sponsored system, which is centralized and
Hmm.
heavily bureaucratic. And, without taking any sides on which system is inherently better or worse because they both have their structural realities, her personal experience within the state system is really illuminating.
Definitely.
It just shows how much power these institutions wield over a single human body. At one point, she was training under a corrupt coach who ultimately absconded with millions of RMB.
Which is awful enough on its own. But the financial theft wasn't even the worst part for her career.
Yeah.
Because this coach had his own institutional grievances with the system, he deliberately blocked her from entering domestic elite competitions.
Just out of spite, essentially.
Yeah. Think about the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
How does a coach sideline a world-class athlete who is physically ready to compete? Exactly. By controlling the paperwork. In these highly centralized systems, a coach controls your insurance forms, your registration sign-offs, your medical clearances.
Wow.
If they refuse to stamp a piece of paper, your physical body is literally not allowed onto the competition floor. So you have this athlete waking up in the dark, training for hours every single day, completely immobilized by a bureaucrat holding a grudge.
And when you combine that level of systemic powerlessness with the physical pressure of the sport, it breeds a very specific, chilling psychological resilience.
What do you mean by that?
Well, how does an athlete react to systemic betrayal? They can't fight the bureaucracy, so they turn the dial up on their own physical pain tolerance. They exert control over the only thing they have left, their capacity to suffer.
Oh, wow.
Qilin explicitly describes this terrifying mentality. She adopted the belief, and I'm quoting here, "There is no pain I can't push through unless it snaps."
That is dark. That is a really dark place to operate from.
It perfectly encapsulates the severe disassociation required to perform at that level. You stop viewing pain as a biological warning signal telling you to stop,
Right.
and you start viewing it as a psychological obstacle your mind must conquer. And this leads directly to horrific medical realities. For example, she developed bone marrow edema.
Okay, let's actually explain what that is because it sounds clinical, but the reality is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, please do.
So inside your bones,
Yeah.
especially the ends of long bones and the bones in your feet, the structure isn't solid. It looks like a honeycomb. It's spongy.
Right.
Bone marrow edema means that the sheer, repetitive physical force of her training was causing microfractures inside that honeycomb structure.
Oh, man.
The bone was literally splintering from the inside out, causing severe fluid buildup and swelling within the bone itself. And think about the last time you tweaked your ankle. You probably took a week off, put your feet up, iced it, watched some TV.
Yeah, of course.
Now imagine being told the literal scaffolding of your skeleton is shattering from the inside.
And in a normal world, the prescription for a shattering bone is immediate, prolonged rest.
Obviously.
But in the world of elite sports, rest is a luxury you cannot afford if you want to keep your spot.
Yeah.
So the prescribed treatment she received wasn't to stop training.
Which is mind-blowing.
The treatment was to use localized pain management, like heavy icing, and incredibly to drastically cut her food intake.
Wait. They told her to stop eating to fix a broken bone?
Yes.
Are you kidding?
No, and the mechanical logic is as simple as it is horrifying. If the bone is shattering under the weight of the body coming down from a leap, the quickest way to reduce the impact force without stopping the leaps is to make the body weigh less.
Oh my goodness.
So athletes will literally starve themselves to drop weight. They reduce the mechanical load on the microfracturing bone by a few pounds. Also, they can squeeze out a few more weeks of training before a competition.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yep.
it highlights exactly how the institutional structure of elite sports normalizes severe self-destruction.
Absolutely.
In these high-stakes environments, athletes are essentially treated as expendable biological assets. The ultimate goal is the medal, the flawless routine, the geopolitical prestige of the score.
Yeah.
The long-term health and longevity of the human being inside that athlete's body is entirely secondary. If the bone is splintering, the systemic response isn't to heal the human. It's to lighten the load on the bone just enough to get the machine across the finish line before it completely breaks down.
Exactly.
But eventually, the bill always comes due. You can only redline an engine for so long.
Yeah.
And for Qilin, the final breaking point wasn't just structural. It was neurological and systemic.
Yeah, this is where things take a really tough turn.
After enduring years of this physical trauma and bureaucratic betrayal, She contracted COVID, which subsequently developed into severe long COVID. And this completely fundamentally derailed her athletic capacity.
It just shut the engine down.
Literally. Her doctors measured her MET score. Now, a MET score stands for metabolic equivalent of task. It's essentially a measure of your body's physical energy output. A normal, healthy adult sitting on a couch is at about a 1.0.
Okay.
A brisk walk might be a 3.0 or 4.0. An elite athlete in peak condition has a max MET score around 18 to 22.
Which is huge.
Right. Qilin's maximum capacity plummeted all the way down to a 5.0.
To give you practical context for what a 5.0 maximum MET score feels like for someone used to operating at a 20, imagine gravity suddenly being turned up to 200%.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
Basic, everyday functions become impossibly taxing. She describes suffering from severe dizziness, debilitating fatigue, and literal fainting spells just from trying to stand upright on a moving bus.
Just standing on a bus.
Yeah. Her body, which she had spent a decade building into this finely tuned, high-horsepower engine, essentially lost its cellular ability to generate energy. The mitochondria just couldn't fire.
So the elite gymnastics career is over. The machine is broken.
Yeah.
But this is where her story takes this incredible, inspiring turn. Stripped of the only physical language she ever knew, she has to find an entirely new way to exist in her body.
Right.
And that search leads her to completely unexpected places, namely commercial street dance and fine arts. She starts taking classes in styles like heels and crump.
Which is such a pivot.
I know. Initially, you wouldn't think a rhythmic gymnast would transition smoothly to street dance. But surprisingly, her brutal gymnastics background actually gave her a massive advantage in heels dancing.
Well, think about the pure physical mechanics of wearing 3-inch stiletto heels. You are entirely destabilized. Your center of gravity is pitched forward.
Definitely.
To dance powerfully and safely in that footwear, you need immense core control and an incredibly strong posterior chain, which are the muscles running all the way down the back of your body from your neck to your calves.
Right.
In gymnastics, Qilin had spent years hardwiring her nervous system for a perfectly upright, rigidly supported posture. She had that hyper-awareness of locking her knees straight and engaging her entire back.
Oh, so it transferred over.
Exactly. When she put on high heels, that exact rigid, upright, muscular support system was already perfectly installed.
But it's her experience with crump dancing that is genuinely the most fascinating mechanism in this entire journey.
Oh, 100%.
Crump is a highly energetic, expressive, almost aggressive style of street dance. But remember, Qilin is still battling the neurological symptoms of long COVID.
Right.
Whenever she exerted herself physically, her cardiovascular system would struggle and her vision would physically blur out. Now, most people, if their vision starts going blurry during a workout, would take that as a massive red flag to sit down and drink some water.
Yeah, that's a sign to stop.
But instead of quitting, she intentionally used this neurological deficit as a tool in her crump dancing.
By intentionally pushing herself to the point where her vision blurred, she essentially induced a state of sensory deprivation. She blacked out her own sight, and by doing that, she tuned out the external world entirely. She couldn't see the other dancers, she couldn't see the instructor, and most importantly, she stopped looking at her own reflection in the studio mirror.
It's like turning off the monitor in a video game and playing entirely by feeling the haptic vibrations in the controller. I mean, she took a terrifying neurological symptom and weaponized it into an artistic superpower.
It is a profound adaptation. Think about it. For her entire life in elite gymnastics, she was taught to constantly visualize her form from the outside.
Always performing for the judges.
Yes. She was trained to picture exactly how the judges were seeing her geometry in space. Were her angles perfect? Were her toes pointed?
Right.
But by losing her vision temporarily during physical exertion, she was forced to abandon that external perspective. She could no longer judge her exterior form, so for the first time in her life, she had to actually listen to her internal state.
That gives me chills.
She began to dance purely based on the dynamic feeling, the weight shifts, and the raw internal energy of the movement itself.
Which forces this massive philosophical reckoning. It really asks the biggest question underlying all of this. What is the ultimate purpose of human movement?
The contrast drawn between these two disciplines is staggering. Gymnastics, as a highly regulated sport, tests what the human body can do. It is an exam.
A physical exam.
Yes. It is about executing a flawless 360-degree rotation to perfectly fit a rigid, external, mathematically derived judging rubric.
Right.
But street dance, and performance art in general, explores what the body wants to say. In styles like Crump, the highest level of performance isn't judged on geometric perfection. It is judged on musicality, emotional essence, and raw presence.
And crucially, it accepts the body's limitations. Like in gymnastics, a limitation is a point deduction.
Exactly.
But in street dance, if someone has a physical disability or a quirky asymmetry, they use that restriction creatively. It becomes part of their unique physical signature.
Yeah, it's celebrated.
Qilin fully embraced this mindset. She completely rejected the academic and athletic power structures that had dictated her every movement since she was a child. She shifted heavily into fine arts and performance art, creating these incredibly intense physical pieces.
Like the breathing piece.
Yes. For example, she performs pieces where she breathes at exactly 60 beats per minute, exerting herself until she physically passes out, just to exist purely as a sovereign individual, refusing to ever submit to a systemic external authority again.
It's intense.
So, what does this all mean? I have to be honest, I need to challenge this a bit.
Sure.
When you look at her doing performance art where she literally breathes until she faints,
Yeah.
didn't you just trade one extreme for another? I mean, pushing your physical body to the point of passing out on a gallery floor, isn't that just the exact same old, hyper-competitive, pain-ignoring gymnast mindset wearing a trendy new disguise?
This raises an important question, and it's a really valid critique. Honestly, when you first look at her suffocating herself to 60 beats per minute until she collapses, it absolutely looks like the trauma talking.
Right. It looks like self-destruction.
It does. It looks like the same self-destruction. But the crucial difference isn't in the physiological action. The difference is in the psychological ownership.
Okay, unpack that.
Yes, her intensity remained exactly the same. She is still a person who pushes her body to the absolute limit. But the motivation has fundamentally shifted.
How so?
In gymnastics, she was pushing herself to the point of bone microfractures for external validation, for the approval of judges, for medals, and to satisfy a bureaucracy that viewed her as an expendable asset.
Right, someone else was holding the reins.
Exactly. In her performance art, she is pushing those limits entirely for herself. She is setting the rules on her own terms to achieve total internal liberation.
Oh, I see.
The physical action looks similar, but the psychological reality is night and day. She isn't breaking her body for a judge anymore. She's using her physical limits as a megaphone for her own voice.
It is such an incredible full-circle journey. I mean, we started with a secretly training 10-year-old waking up in the freezing dark in a Canadian basement, forcing her knee joints to violently snap and her bones to endure structural microfractures. And all of that just for the sake of a perfect score from a stranger.
Yeah.
And we end with an autonomous artist navigating the debilitating heavy fatigue of long COVID, who finally found her absolute freedom by letting her vision go completely blur, trusting the vibrations of the music in the floor and just dancing for herself.
When you really absorb a story like this, it makes you pause and think about your own physical movement history.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you listening to this right now, every single slouch you have at your desk, every sprained ankle you stubbornly walked off in high school, every physical habit you have unconsciously built, it all tells the story of how you have lived.
It's all recorded in the body.
It is. It is an invitation to view your own body differently, not as a machine that constantly needs to be tuned, hacked, and optimized for maximum daily productivity, but as a living, breathing, historical record of your experiences, your traumas, and your emotions.
It really changes everything about how you walk through the world. And it leaves you with one final thing to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
What's in it?
If our bodies are ultimately just temporary vehicles for our consciousness, what is actually the better way to live? Do you meticulously preserve the vehicle, eating the greens, getting the sleep, keeping the miles low, and the paint shiny so it lasts as long as humanly possible? Or do you take it out onto the open road, hit the gas, and drive it to the absolute breaking point just to see what the engine can really do?